Two words on a screen: Carmen Colon, and a town, Churchville. Just a name and a place in upstate New York. But look at the initials: C.C. Churchville. Now watch. Wanda Walkowicz, Webster, W.W. Webster, Michelle Maenza, Macedon, M.M. Macedon. 3 girls. 3 sets of double initials. 3 towns in Monroe County, whose names began with the same letter. Between November of 1971 and November of 1973, someone operating in the suburbs of Rochester, New York, abducted, assaulted, and strangled 3 children and left each body in a town that matched her initials. The probability of 3 random victims having double initials and being found in towns matching those initials by coincidence is so astronomically small that FBI analysts couldn't agree on whether to call it a signature or a statistical anomaly. Investigators called them the alphabet murders. The press called them the double initial killings. The families called them something else entirely. They called them Carmen, Wanda, and Michelle. And for more than 50 years, the person who arranged that alphabetical trail has never been publicly identified. This is the story of 3 names, 3 towns, and a pattern that has haunted Western New York for half a century. Rochester, New York, in the early 1970s. A city of roughly 300,000 people nestled along the Genesee River, known for Kodak film, Xerox copiers, and Bausch & Lomb lenses. The surrounding Monroe County stretches outward into quiet farming towns, apple orchards, and roads that wind through flat, open country with names like Stumptown Road and Maiden Lane. It was not a place accustomed to terror. Carmen Colon was 10 years old. She lived with her mother, Guillermina, in a modest apartment on West Main Street in Rochester. Carmen was a small girl, just 4 feet tall and 60 pounds. She was Puerto Rican, shy but friendly, a 4th grader at school number 29 on Herman Street. On the afternoon of November 16, 1971, Carmen left a pharmacy at the Bull's Head Plaza on West Main Street, where her mother had sent her to pick up a prescription. She was last seen walking west toward her grandmother's house. She never arrived. 2 days later, on November 18th, Carmen's body was discovered in the town of Churchville, a rural community roughly 15 miles southwest of downtown Rochester, population barely 2,000. She had been found in a drainage ditch alongside Stumptown Road. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. She was partially clothed. There were scratches on her body consistent with being dragged through brush. And investigators noted something they would not fully understand for another 2 years. Carmen Colon had been left in Churchville. C.C. in Churchville. What happened between Carmen leaving that pharmacy and her body being found in Churchville has produced one of the most agonizing details in any cold case in American history. Multiple motorists driving along Interstate 490 on November 16th reported seeing a young girl, naked, crying, running along the shoulder of the highway near the Churchville exit. At least one driver said he slowed down but did not stop. Another reportedly called police from a payphone. By the time officers arrived, the child was gone. If those sightings were Carmen, and investigators believe they were, she had briefly escaped her abductor. She had been on a highway, visible to passing cars screaming for help, and no one stopped in time. The killer apparently recaptured her. Her body was found less than 2 miles from where the motorists reported seeing her. The autopsy confirmed death by asphyxiation due to ligature strangulation. There was evidence of sexual assault. There was no semen recovered. Forensic DNA collection in 1971 was, of course, virtually non-existent. Rochester police investigated aggressively. They looked at known sex offenders. They interviewed Carmen's relatives, including her uncle Miguel Colon, who had a prior conviction for sexual abuse of a minor. He was questioned but never charged. The case went cold before spring. 17 months passed. Then it happened again. On April 1000, 1973, 11-year-old Wanda Walkowicz disappeared from the area near Avenue D on Rochester's north side. Wanda was a quiet girl who lived with her mother and siblings. She had gone to a small grocery store to buy groceries for her family. Witnesses last saw her near the corner of Avenue D and Stanton Street at approximately 5:15 in the evening. It was still light out. Wanda's body was discovered the following day, April 3, at a rest area off State Route 104 in the town of Webster, 12 miles northeast of Rochester. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. Her body had been left on a hillside near the parking area, partially concealed by brush. Webster. WW now, there were two. If you're the kind of person who pays attention to patterns, and investigators in Monroe County were exactly that kind of person, this was impossible to ignore. Carmen Colon, found in Churchville. Wanda Walkowicz, found in Webster. Two girls with double initials, each left in a town that shared that initial. Rochester police convened a task force. They cross-referenced the two cases. Both victims were elementary school age. Both had been abducted in broad daylight from commercial areas in Rochester. Both had been strangled. Both had been driven to towns outside the city. Rural, quiet places where a body could be left without immediate discovery. If you're fascinated by the way investigators piece together patterns across time, stay with me, because the pattern was about to complete itself in the worst way imaginable. November 26, 1973, nearly 8 months after Wanda, nearly 2 years to the week after Carmen, 11-year-old Michelle Maenza was last seen near the Marketplace Mall shopping plaza on East Henrietta Road in Rochester. Michelle was a 6th grader, described by her teachers as a sweet, trusting child. She had been at a shopping area after school. A witness later told police they had seen Michelle speaking with a man in a vehicle near the plaza. She was reported missing that evening. On November 28, 2 days later, Michelle's body was found in a ditch alongside Eddy Road in the town of Macedon, 20 miles east of Rochester, deep in Wayne County farm country. She had been sexually assaulted. She had been strangled. She was partially clothed. Macedon, MM, the alphabet was complete. Carmen Colon, Churchville. Wanda Walkowicz, Webster. Michelle Maenza, Macedon. CWM, 3 children, 3 sets of double initials, 3 matching towns. The press erupted. The Rochester Democrat and Chronicle plastered the pattern across its front page. Families in Monroe County pulled their children indoors. If you had a daughter whose first and last name started with the same letter, Rochester, New York in the winter of 1973 was the most terrifying place in America to live. The killer had left a message in the geography itself. But what did it mean? The Monroe County Sheriff's Office and Rochester Police Department formed their largest joint task force in history. Detectives compiled lists of every known sex offender in the greater Rochester area. They mapped the abduction sites, the dump sites, and the routes between them. They interviewed hundreds of people, and they fixated on one question that would define this investigation for the next 5 decades. Was the initial pattern deliberate? On one side, investigators argued it had to be intentional. The killer was selecting victims based on their names, then driving them to specific towns to match. It was a signature, a taunting, methodical calling card left for law enforcement. On the other side, skeptics pointed out that the killer may have simply chosen victims of opportunity, vulnerable children in urban Rochester, and the initials were a staggering but ultimately random coincidence. After all, the towns of Churchville, Webster, and Macedon are all within a 20-mile radius. A kidnapper driving in any direction from the city might end up in one of them. The debate has never been settled. What investigators did agree on was the profile: a white male, likely in his 20s or 30s, with a vehicle familiar with the rural roads of Monroe and Wayne counties. Someone who could lure young girls in daylight without drawing attention. Someone who knew where to leave a body. Among the earliest suspects was Miguel Colon, Carmen's uncle. He had access to Carmen. He had a criminal history involving minors. But investigators could never connect him to Wanda or Michelle. He was ultimately ruled out as the serial perpetrator, though some detectives quietly maintained he may have been responsible for Carmen's death alone, a theory that, if true, would reduce the initial pattern to 2 matching cases rather than 3. Over the decades, the suspect list would grow, and each name brought its own chill. Kenneth Bianchi. If that name sounds familiar, it should. Bianchi, along with his cousin Angelo Buono, would later be convicted as one half of the Hillside Stranglers, the serial killing duo who murdered 10 women in Los Angeles between 1977 and 1978. Before Los Angeles, Kenneth Bianchi grew up in Rochester, New York. He lived there during the exact period of the double initial murders. He was in his early 20s. He had a fascination with police work, and he had been questioned in connection with at least one of the 3 cases before he left Rochester for California. Investigators in the 1990s took a hard look at Bianchi. The geography fit, the timeline fit, the profile fit, but when DNA technology advanced enough to test the evidence, Bianchi was reportedly excluded. Then there was Joseph Nasso. In 2010, Naso, a 77-year-old photographer living in Reno, Nevada, was arrested and later convicted of murdering 4 women in Northern California between 1977 and 1994. The victims' names? Roxanne Rogash, Carmen Colon, Pamela Parsons, Tracy Tafoya. Double initials. Every single one. A convicted serial killer in California had murdered women with double initial names, including a woman named Carmen Colon, and he had lived in Rochester, New York, in the early 1970s. Naso worked as a photographer and had documented ties to the Rochester area. Investigators scrambled to compare his DNA to evidence from the Alphabet murders. The results, according to multiple law enforcement sources, were inconclusive. Degraded evidence from the 1970s yielded partial profiles that could neither confirm nor exclude him. Naso denied involvement. He was convicted of the California murders in 2013 and sentenced to death. He died on death row at San Quentin in 2020. Whether he killed 3 children in Rochester before moving west, we may never know. What would you have concluded? Let me know in the comments. In 2007, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office announced that DNA had been successfully extracted from evidence in at least one of the 3 cases. The technology had finally caught up to the crime. Investigators entered the profiles into CODIS, the FBI's combined DNA index system, and waited for a hit. None came. The DNA matched no one in the database. Over the following years, detectives used the profiles to exclude suspect after suspect. Dennis Termine, a Rochester area man who had been a person of interest for years due to his proximity to the victims' neighborhoods and his own criminal history, was also tested. The results of that comparison were never made public. In 2011, investigators attempted to use genetic genealogy, the same technique that would later crack the Golden State Killer case, to generate new leads. The evidence was too degraded, partial alleles, mixed samples. The forensic limitations of a crime committed before DNA was even understood as a tool made every comparison an exercise in frustration. The families, meanwhile, waited. Carmen's mother, Guillermina, spent years working with police before her own death. Wanda's siblings grew up in the shadow of a murder no one could solve. Michelle Maenza's family held vigils and cooperated with every new investigative effort. None of them ever received a phone call telling them who killed their daughter, their sister, their child. So here is what we're left with. 3 girls abducted in broad daylight from Rochester, New York. 3 bodies left in 3 different rural towns. A pattern in the initials so precise it reads like a code. And a list of suspects that includes a Hillside Strangler, a convicted double-initial serial killer from California, a family member with a criminal record, and a handful of local persons of interest whose names have never been released. The FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit reviewed the case. They noted the escalating confidence of the killer. Carmen was abducted and killed within 2 days in 1971. Wanda was taken and found within 24 hours in April 1973. Michelle, just 8 months later, followed the same rapid timeline. Each killing was tighter, more efficient. The signature, if it was a signature, remained consistent. The dump sites became more remote. And then it stopped. After November 1973, no more children with double initials were murdered in the Rochester area. Either the killer moved, was incarcerated for another crime, died, or simply stopped. The cessation itself is a clue. Kenneth Bianchi moved to Los Angeles in 1975. Joseph Naso relocated to California around the same period. The timeline is suggestive, but suggestive is not conclusive, and in a case involving murdered children, anything less than certainty is unacceptable. More than 50 years have passed since Michelle Maenza's body was found on Eddy Road in Macedon. The town of Churchville still has fewer than 4,000 residents. Webster has grown into a comfortable suburb. Macedon remains farm country, quiet, flat, the kind of place where you can see a car approaching from a mile away. 3 children are buried in Monroe County soil, and the man who put them there has never been named. What haunts investigators most is not the violence, though the violence against these children was unspeakable. It's the pattern. Because if the initials were deliberate, it means the killer chose his victims by name. It means Carmen Colon didn't die because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. She died because her name was Carmen Colon. It means the killer looked at a child and saw not a person but a letter of the alphabet, and it means he drove past a dozen towns to find the one that matched. That is a level of premeditation that goes beyond compulsion. That is theater. And if the initials were coincidence, then the universe arranged 3 of the cruelest murders in New York history into a pattern that looks exactly like a message, and no one sent it. Either answer is terrifying Carmen Colon, Churchville, Wanda Walkowicz, Webster, Michelle Maenza, Macedon. Read the initials again. If this case stays with you the way it stayed with me, I'd be honored if you joined the family. Because there are cases that deserve to be remembered, and 3 little girls in Rochester, New York, are 3 of them. The alphabet murders remain unsolved. If you have information, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office tip line remains open. Someone knows. Someone has always known.